The first time my stepmother tried to erase me, she took my mother's piano out of the living room. The last time, she tried to erase me from my father's will. My client has a new codicil that supersedes whatever you have prepared, Veronica announced, sliding a thick envelope across the polished table. Like it was a winning poker hand, the red light on the recorder blinked steadily between us, catching every word. I sat at the far end, hands folded, back straight, looking calmer than I felt. 15 years of being forgotten for holidays, of calls that never reached my father, of invitations mysteriously lost in the mail had taught me one thing: never show her you're nervous. Daniel Whitaker? My father's attorney adjusted his glasses and opened the envelope. He'd been with our family for 30 years, weddings, acquisitions, expansions, my mother's funeral. If anyone knew the truth about Graham Bennett, it was him. My name is Lena Ward now. Legally, it's still Bennett on the documents, but I changed it on everything else years ago: email, social media, business cards. A quiet rebellion after one too many people said, "Oh, Bennett, like the real estate guy?" And Veronica started introducing me as Graham's first daughter, like I was some beta version that got replaced. As you can see, Veronica said, voice smooth as glass, Graham redirected certain portions of the estate in light of Lena's extended absence from his life. Extended absence, interesting phrase for 15 years of blocked messages and curated lies. Behind her sat her sister and two cousins, wearing matching expressions of solemn greed. They hadn't visited my father once during his first chemo round, but here they were now, front row for the reading of the will. Daniel's eyes flicked over the pages. His mouth didn't move, but something in his expression did. A tightening, a spark. Then so small you'd miss it if you didn't know him, a smile. Is there a problem? Veronica asked. On the contrary, Daniel said, setting the papers aside. This clarifies our next step. He reached into his leather portfolio and opened a slim laptop. On the screen, a folder waited, already labeled, "If Veronica speaks first, play I am immediate yield." Air in the conference room changed. Veronica didn't notice. Her cousins didn't notice. But I did. My father had told me 2 years ago over a rushed coffee, trust Daniel, no matter what it looks like. Daniel clicked the file. My father's voice filled the room. If you're hearing this, Veronica, it means you tried to steal from my daughter. Veronica went perfectly still, and for the first time in 15 years, I felt something I hadn't dared to feel around her. Advantage. The room seemed to shrink as my father's recorded. Voice continued, calm and devastating. For the past 15 years, Graham said, you have controlled my communications, managed my schedule, and isolated me from my daughter under the guise of protecting me. Consider this your opportunity to stop talking. Daniel paused the audio and looked directly at Veronica. Before we continue, let the record reflect that this recording was made by Graham Bennett in his own home legally, as a participant in every conversation referenced. Veronica opened her mouth, but Daniel raised a single finger. Not yet. I leaned back, watching the woman who had rewritten my childhood try to calculate her next chess move. For years, I'd wondered why my father stopped coming to my school events, why he missed birthdays, why he didn't respond to the letters I wrote in college. I blamed myself. I blamed the distance, my work, my stubborn pride. But now, with every click of the audio file, the truth unraveled. Daniel opened a second folder. Miss Ward, your father asked that these particular documents be shown to you at this point. He slid a stack of printed call logs toward me. They weren't mine. They were his. Dozens of voicemails, my birthday messages, holiday greetings. Simple thinking of you calls marked as deleted by household admin. The euphemism Veronica used for herself. My stomach tightened as I scanned the dates. The year I graduated. The week he was hospitalized. The night I called sobbing because a man I loved had broken my heart, all deleted within minutes of being received. My hands trembled despite my effort to remain composed. So every time he didn't call back, he never heard you, Daniel said gently. Not once. A sharp breath escaped me. Not a cry, not anger, just the sound of 15 years of confusion finally finding a shape. Daniel continued. These, he said, sliding over another envelope, are security images from the Bennett home system, provided to us by Mr. Barnes, Graham's investigator. Images. Timestamps. Each one showing Veronica entering my father's office during times I had attempted contact. One photo in particular stole the air from my lungs, me standing at the front. Gate age 23 hair wet from rain. Clutching a birthday cake. Inside, behind the curtains. Veronica peering through the blinds. Daniel didn't need to explain. She'd told the staff to say Dad was asleep. She'd told Dad I hadn't shown up. She'd rewritten the moment in both our memories. Beside me, Veronica stiffened. Her face held the same serene mask she'd perfected over the years, but her jaw betrayed her, clenched, hard, furious. You manipulated an entire family, Daniel said quietly. And you did it with enough consistency that everyone believed your version of reality. I looked at Veronica, truly looked at her, and realized something profound. She hadn't erased me by accident. She erased me because I threatened her place. Why? I asked, finally. Why keep him from me? She lifted her eyes, cold and unrepentant. Because your father loved you more. Her words fell like a confession, a truth she didn't mean to give, and in that moment confusion, guilt, and grief hardened into something sharper. Resolve. Veronica's confession hung in the air like smoke ugly, suffocating, impossible to ignore. But Daniel didn't pause. He didn't soothe. He didn't even blink. He simply clicked the next video file. My father appeared on the screen thinner, weary, chemo-softened, but unmistakably sharp. His eyes, even through the grainy frame, still held that calculating brightness I'd inherited. If you're seeing this, he said, then the woman sitting across from my daughter has overplayed her hand. Veronica stiffened. My father continued, voice calm and almost conversational. Veronica, for years I suspected you were distorting my relationship with Lena, but suspicion isn't evidence. And you were very, very careful. Until you weren't. Daniel paused the video. This, he said, tapping the screen, is only one of 87 recordings. Veronica's composure cracked for the first time a twitch. A flare of panic before she fixed her face again. He clicked play. I began gathering proof 3 years ago. Graham said, the day I found a voicemail transcribed on my office phone that didn't match the message on my cell carrier record. I sat straighter. My breath caught. I remembered that message. I thanked him for sending flowers for my promotion. He never mentioned it. I assumed he forgot. He never even heard it. I hired a private digital forensics specialist, he went on. I installed a mirrored server. I activated cameras in the hall outside my office, and I placed a backup recorder behind the bookshelf. Daniel clicked open another folder. Video thumbnails, dates, times in each one. Veronica entered my father's office when he wasn't home or asleep and disabled alerts, deleted files. Rewrote call logs. A perfect domestic espionage operation until my father turned his home into a trap. He had been preparing for this moment for years, but the next file was different. It wasn't video. It was a scanned legal document. 2 years ago, Daniel said, your father executed a second will. One that superseded the traditional will. One that couldn't be accessed without specific triggers. Daniel slid a heavy binder across the table toward me. The Bennett Legacy Trust. The name alone hit my chest like a drum. The trust had been sealed until Veronica attempted to alter or introduce any new version of the will she spoke before the attorney at the will reading she attempted to exclude or diminish Lena's. Inheritance Veronica did all three. Daniel cleared his throat. To be specific, your father predicted in writing that Veronica would attempt fraud. A strangled noise escaped her, half outrage, half disbelief, and therefore Daniel continued. The moment she presented that falsified codicil, all original estate directives became void, and the trust became the primary controlling document. My heart raced. What does that mean? It means, he said, opening the binder, that your father left you 70% of everything. All assets, all accounts, all real estate, all shares. I blinked. 70? He wanted the majority in the hands of someone who wouldn't sell the company to a conglomerate, Daniel said. Someone who understood its value. Someone he trusted. Someone he loved. Me. And Veronica? I asked quietly. She receives 30% only if she does not challenge the trust, Daniel replied. If she contests anything, she forfeits her entire share. Veronica's lawyer sank back in his chair, face pale, and Daniel added, opening yet another file. Your father included a no contest clause so airtight it could suffocate a dragon. The clause specified no challenges, no appeals, no interference. No attempts to claim diminished capacity, no claims on behalf of relatives, no attempts to contest beneficiary distribution, no attempts to remove trustees violate any one of them. Immediate forfeiture, that's illegal, Veronica snapped. It's not, Daniel said pleasantly. Your husband worked with 3 of the top estate attorneys in the country to ensure this. Then he leaned back, steepling his fingers, and now we come to the final piece of your husband's counterattack. He turned the page. My father, in the next video, looked straight into the camera. If Veronica attempts to defraud my estate, he said, a dead man's switch will release all documented manipulation, elder abuse, financial misconduct, communication interference, and coercion to the district attorney. And to Lena. Veronica's face drained of color. All files, Daniel said, have already been automatically duplicated to 3 separate law firms, 1 federal agency, and 2 journalists. You can't, she whispered. Your husband already did. The room fell into a ringing silence. Years of stolen connection, of guilt, of being told I was forgotten, suddenly flipped recast in a new light. He never abandoned me. He was fighting for me the whole time, and he had just defeated her from beyond the grave. My father's last recorded words filled the room. Lena, if you're watching this, it means I won. And for the first time in 15 years, so did I. The moment Daniel uttered the words, dead man switch, the temperature in the conference room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Even Veronica's ever-perfect posture faltered. Her fingers, manicured into soulless perfection, twitched on the table. She finally realized this wasn't a will reading. This was a controlled detonation engineered by a man who knew exactly who he'd married. Daniel opened another tab on his laptop. A list of folders appeared, each labeled with a chilling precision. Audio minus 147. Files video 89, files emails minus 300 plus. Items text logs to 2000. Pages bank statements, 7 years medical records 4. Years affidavits, witness depositions, home security. Archives, digital forensics report backup copies, encrypted. Then 1 final folder to release if Veronica contests. Anything. My father had built a vault of truth, thousands of documents detailing the slow, methodical sabotage of our relationship, his health, and his estate. Evidence too vast to ignore, too damning to refute, and too widely duplicated to destroy. Daniel clicked the first audio file. My father's voice was quiet, tired, recorded during his last year. Veronica, I know you've been deleting Lena's messages. A second voice, hers, responded with forced sweetness. That's ridiculous. She barely calls. You blocked her number from the landline? He replied. A rustle, a pause. Then a sharp slap, fingers on wood. I said I'm handling things. She hissed. Daniel didn't look at her. He clicked the next recording. This time, it was her speaking to someone else. Her sister. I only need him to stay confused long enough to finalize the transfer, Veronica whispered. Lena doesn't deserve a cent. My stomach nodded. Daniel stayed expressionless. File. After file played, Veronica describing how she redirected family visits, her deleting my emails right in front of him, complaining that sick men cling to their children, her acknowledging she controlled his medication schedule, her bragging about handling his financial blind spots, her telling a friend she'd remove Lena from the equation. Permanently, my hands went cold, my pulse sharp in my ears. Then Daniel opened the video folder. The first clip showed Veronica entering my father's office after midnight carrying a stack of papers. She sat at his desk typing, deleting, removing files from drawers, placing others back. With each clip, her mask cracked a little more, her cheeks flushing, her lips thinning, her shoulders stiffening. Then Daniel opened the forensics report. This, he said, is a full timeline of every unauthorized change made to Mr. Bennett's estate plans over the past 4 years. He pointed to highlighted lines, alterations to beneficiary, percentage forged, signatures unauthorized, access to the digital will, deletion of medical, notifications, routing of personal emails, all initiated, he said, from Veronica's login, her devices, or her physical presence. Her lawyer finally exhaled, long, slow, defeated. This is inadmissible, he tried. Daniel raised a brow. Which part? The recordings, all made in Graham's presence, legal. The emails, pulled from the cloud server, legal. The videos, recorded inside his home. His consent, legal. The forensics, signed by 3 certified experts, legal. Daniel closed the laptop gently. Mrs. Bennett, he said, tone almost kind. Your husband anticipated every argument you're trying to form right now. He built this system because he knew you'd attempt to take everything from Lena the moment he died. He leaned forward and he made sure you'd fail. Veronica inhaled shakily, as if the room had shrunk tight around her, because the truth was undeniable now. My father hadn't just suspected her, he documented her, tracked her, trapped her, and he had left behind a mountain of evidence so overwhelming that even death couldn't silence him or stop me from hearing him. And for the first time, as I stared at the files protecting me like steel armor, I understood my father hadn't just fought back. He prepared for war for the first time since. I walked into the conference room. Veronica looked afraid, not annoyed, not offended, not mildly inconvenienced, not afraid. Her eyes darted between the laptop, the thick binder of my father's trust, and Daniel Whitaker, who was calmly rearranging papers like a teacher waiting for a disruptive student to finish panicking. This is ridiculous, she said, but her voice cracked. Graham was confused. He didn't understand what he was signing in his final months. Daniel raised a brow, almost amused. Would you like me to play the footage of him discussing the trust with Attorney Ramos? Or the part where he very clearly outlines the structure of the legacy trust to Dr. Halden? Both were filmed with date and timestamps, and your husband appears quite lucid. Veronica's lawyer coughed in warning, a subtle "you're making this worse," but she barreled forward, wild with desperation. He was being manipulated. Someone must have convinced him that you were manipulating him. Daniel interjected politely. Unlikely, given the original evidence shows exactly that. He clicked open another file. A video loaded. My father, looking directly at the camera, Veronica will claim confusion. She will claim I was coerced. She will try to paint my daughter as some long-lost opportunist. I want this stated clearly. I chose every word, every percentage, and every directive of my own free will. Veronica's throat bobbed with a shaky swallow. My father continued. If she challenges any portion of this trust, she forfeits everything. Do not negotiate with her. Do not compromise. She has already taken too much from my daughter. Daniel paused the video. My client's instructions were explicit. Then he slid a document forward. Notice of forfeiture trigger conditions. Currently, he said calmly, Mrs. Bennett has already triggered 3 of the 5. Her lawyer leaned forward, face pale. What conditions? Daniel read them out, attempting to introduce a forged codicil speaking before the estate attorney. At the will reading attempting to diminish the primary. Beneficiaries' rights challenging. Trust terms making false statements about Graham's mental state. You are 1 violation away. Daniel said softly, from losing your entire share. Veronica's jaw trembled. She forced a breath. Fine, fine. Then I won't challenge anything. I'll take the 30%. Daniel tilted his head. Your husband anticipated this too. He opened another document, this one shorter, but devastating, a behavioral compliance addendum. If Veronica wished to keep her 30% share, she must vacate the Bennett home within 30 days. Contacting Lena entirely renounce any claim to the Bennett company. Submit to quarterly financial audits. Have no further contact with Graham's extended family. Sign illegal confession acknowledging manipulation. Agree to a 5-year non-interference clause. Her face went corpse white. This is absurd, she hissed. This, Daniel said, tapping the paper, is binding. Her lawyer spoke quietly but urgently. Veronica, you signed documents agreeing to these terms 2 years ago. What? She snapped at Daniel, pushed a tablet across the table. On it, a video of Veronica in her own handwriting, signing an agreement framed as a routine estate update. My father's voice narrated over the footage. Thank you for signing these, Veronica. I know you dislike paperwork, but this ensures everything is clean when Lena is primary heir. Veronica froze. Her entire body locked. She hadn't read the papers. She trusted him. He'd told her it was routine, and she signed away her entire future. She realized it, and she broke. The first crack was a sharp inhale. Then her hands shook. Her carefully applied lipstick quivered. When she spoke again, it wasn't the smooth, composed Veronica everyone knew. It was the strict version beneath panicked. Cornered, vicious. You're doing this, she hissed at me. You turned him against me? I didn't raise my voice. I simply said, he was protecting me from you. She lunged forward like she wanted to slap the table, but her lawyer grabbed her wrist. Stop, he hissed. You will lose everything. Veronica stared at me, wild, furious, cornered, but said nothing more. The truth had finally reached her. She wasn't in control. She never had been. My father was always 10 steps ahead, and her entire scheme, years of manipulation, lies, erasures, power plays, was collapsing exactly the way he planned. Completely, publicly, irreversibly. The air in the conference room shifted from tense to suffocating. Veronica no longer sat like a queen guarding her throne. She sat like someone realizing the executioner had been standing behind her the entire time. Daniel folded his hands. Mrs. Bennett, he said evenly, you now have 2 choices. Only 2. Her lawyer already looked defeated. He had opened a notebook but wasn't writing, just staring at the page as if hoping a hole would open beneath. Daniel lifted the first document. Option 1. Acceptance. You comply with every term listed in the behavioral addendum your late husband had you sign. No negotiation, no alterations. He read them aloud again, slower this time, letting each word brand the room. Vacate the Bennett estate within 30 days. Surrender all keys, accounts, and passwords immediately. No contact with Lena, her partners, or her legal team. No involvement in the Bennett company or its subsidiaries. Submit to quarterly audits for 5 years. Sign a notarized confession acknowledging your actions. A 5-year restraint clause barring interference. You will receive your 30% share, Daniel finished, paid through the trust on an annual distribution schedule. Veronica swallowed hard. Annual distribution meant she would never receive a lump sum. She would be monitored, restricted, controlled, which, for a woman who thrived on control, was its own form of punishment. Daniel lifted the second document. Option 2, total forfeiture. If you contest any term or speak one false accusation regarding Mr. Bennett's mental clarity, the dead man switch will activate. He tapped the folder labeled to release if Veronica contests anything. In that event, he continued, all video, audio, and documents will be turned over to the district attorney, the IRS, the state medical board, Graham's investors, and 2 journalists he personally selected. Her lawyer tried to speak. Daniel raised a hand. There is more. He opened another page. You will receive 0% of the estate. Not one asset. Not one share. Veronica stared, stunned. Additionally, Daniel said, the trust authorizes us to pursue civil damages against you for elder interference, financial misconduct, and intentional emotional harm toward the primary beneficiary. If successful, he added, you would owe the estate repayment for 7 years of misallocated funds, a sum your late husband estimated at around $2.8 million. Her lawyer inhaled sharply. Veronica's fingers clawed at the armrests, and Daniel said quietly, the Bennett house, which you have claimed socially for years, belongs to Lena alone. Graham changed the deed 18 months ago. Veronica's eyes snapped to me. No, she whispered. That house is mine. I rebuilt it. You redecorated it, I said. My father built it. Silence. Daniel leaned back. So, Mrs. Bennett, you can take your 30% under strict supervision, or walk away with nothing and face criminal exposure. Her lawyer whispered, take the deal. You have no leverage. Veronica trembled, not with fear, but with pride crushed under its own weight. Her lips parted. She exhaled a sound halfway between a sob and a snarl. I accept. Daniel nodded once, crisply. Then let's begin with your confession. And just like that, the woman who spent 15 years erasing me was forced finally to speak the truth. Not for me. Not for her, but because my father set the board. And she never realized she was always the losing piece. The temperature in the conference room seemed to drop as the final acceptance document slid across the polished mahogany table. Veronica stared at it as if the paper itself were poisonous. In a way, this was the moment her entire empire of control would collapse beneath her. Daniel placed a pen in front of her. Whenever you're ready, he said calmly. Though every word carried the gravity of a verdict, Veronica didn't pick up the pen. Her fingers twitched, shaking visibly. For the first time since I'd known her, the mask cracked completely. I devoted my life to him, she whispered, voice hoarse. 15 years. 15 years of manipulation, Daniel corrected softly. And Graham documented every minute. Her eyes flicked to me cold, furious, yet hollow. You stole him from me, she hissed. No, I replied evenly. You just made sure he couldn't reach me. That's not the same thing. The humiliation in her eyes twisted into something bitter. But it didn't matter, not anymore. Her power had evaporated the moment she stepped into that room. Her lawyer cleared his throat. Mrs. Bennett, you must sign. Contesting is not an option. That broke something inside her. The last illusion, the last thread of imagined control. She reached for the pen. Her hand shook so violently the pen scraped the signature line. She corrected it, breathing shallowly, signing her name once, twice, 12 times across the stack of documents, the non-interference agreement, the no-contact clause, the annual distribution terms, the mandatory confession addendum, the exile compliance contract. Each stroke of ink was another chain. When she finished, she collapsed back into her chair, shoulders caving as if the structure of her identity had finally given. Out. Daniel collected the papers with impeccable precision. Now the confession. Veronica flinched out my father's final demand. Her own words in her handwriting, cataloging her crimes, a written sword hanging above her life. Daniel slid a yellow legal pad toward her. You'll answer as prompted. Her lawyer began. I must advise. No, she whispered. Advising won't change anything. And she began. The room went silent except for the scratching of a pen and the quiet clicks of the recording device. I, Veronica Voss Bennett, knowingly interfered with Graham Bennett's communication with his daughter. My spine tingled. Hearing her admit it, not implied, not hinted, but stated, felt like a ghost being finally laid to rest. I restricted access to medication. I deleted voicemails. I intercepted letters. I colluded with individuals to manufacture signs of cognitive decline. On and on she wrote, 40 minutes, then an hour, until the confession spanned 9 pages. Every line a nail sealing the box of her old life shut. Daniel took the pages, inspected them carefully, then slid them into a heavy envelope stamped with the Bennett Legacy Trust seal. This remains sealed, he said, unless you violate the terms. Then it becomes public and prosecutorial. Veronica swayed slightly, as if she might faint. Her lawyer rested a hand on her shoulder, but she shrugged it off. I'm finished, she said, voice strained. Isn't that what you wanted? No, I said softly. What I wanted was my father. This is just the consequence. She looked away. The terms of her exile were read aloud next. She had 72 hours to vacate the city. She was barred from entering North Midlands. For 5 years, she could not contact me, directly or indirectly. She could not contact any Bennett Development employee, board member, or partner. Any violation suspended her distributions immediately and permanently. Gregory Barnes would monitor all activity. Her voice trembled. 5 years. You expect me to vanish? People rebuild lives everywhere, Daniel said gently. Consider it a fresh start. A safe one. She straightened, as if summoning the last of her pride. You think I'll just walk away? After everything you already have, I replied. You just hadn't realized it. Her face twisted, but fear drowned the anger. She turned to Daniel. And the house? Lena inherits immediately, Daniel said. Keys, title, all contents effective today. She closed her eyes, pain slicing across her expression. That house was the only home I ever. It was never yours. I interrupted softly. It was my mother's, then my father's. Now it's mine. She looked at me then, really looked. For a moment, the venom vanished. All that remained was a tired woman who'd built her world on someone else's foundation and was now watching it crumble. She stood. No threats, she said quietly. No curses. No speeches. She looked at Daniel. When do I leave? Gregory will escort you to collect your personal belongings, Daniel said. After that, he will accompany you to the airport. She nodded once tiny. Defeated. As she walked to the door, she paused beside me. You may have won, she whispered, but you'll never understand what it costs to lose everything. I met her gaze. I already lost everything, I said softly. You just made sure of it years ago. For the first time, she didn't have a retort. She lowered her eyes and walked out. The door clicked shut. Daniel exhaled. Well, he murmured, your father's final move has been executed. I nodded slowly. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like freedom sharp, trembling, overdue. And tomorrow, after 15 years of silence, I would finally go home. The morning after Veronica's exile, the city felt different, sharper in its winter air, clearer somehow. Like fog had lifted from a place I hadn't realized was suffocating. Gregory's final message arrived just after sunrise. Subject, departure confirmed. Voss has left North Midlands. Monitoring continues. No further contact. That was it. 15 years of manipulation gone in a single line of text. I stared at it for a long moment, letting the truth settle into my bones. Then I drove to Willowcrest, returning to the house that was stolen from me. The driveway looked exactly as I remembered from childhood, framed by the old oak tree and winter roses. But stepping out of the car, I realized how long I'd avoided this place, not because I didn't want it, but because Veronica had conditioned me to believe I didn't belong. Daniel stood waiting on the porch, keys in hand, a warm scarf around his neck. Ready? He asked. I nodded. He pressed the keys into my palm. Heavy, real, final. The house is officially yours. Nora, the locks have been changed. Security codes reset. Staff has been reassigned. I swallowed hard. This feels unreal. It will feel more real once you step inside. I turned the key. The door opened soundlessly. For a moment, all I could do was stand there, hand against the frame, staring into a hallway stripped of Veronica's cold, modern minimalism. The movers had already removed her things. The shadows of where her art once hung looked almost like bruises on the walls. Daniel stepped back, giving me space. I walked inside. Every step felt like reclaiming an inch of my childhood. A hallway where my mother used to hang my school drawings. A staircase where my father carried me on Christmas mornings. A living room where laughter once lived, all stolen. All returned. In the kitchen, sunlight spilled across the island, the same place I used to sit, swinging my legs while Mom cooked. I opened cabinets one by one, checking what had survived Veronica's purges. Most were empty, but when I reached the top shelf of a side cabinet, my breath caught. A single crystal glass. My mother's. She must have hidden it out of spite, or perhaps out of fear that holding on to anything of hers would expose her jealousy. Now it felt like a small victory returned to me by fate. I held it gently, as if touching my mom's hand, the workshop, my father's last gift. But the real moment came when I descended into the basement, workshop, my father's sanctuary. The smell of sawdust and old varnish wrapped around me like a memory. On the central table, untouched, stood the miniature Willowcrest model he'd spent decades building. The note he'd left was still attached. Build the life Veronica tried to take from you. Tears burned behind my eyes. This wasn't just a model. It was his apology. His love carved in wood and glue. His hope for me. And in one of the miniature rooms, his tiny recreation of my childhood bedroom, I found a folded scrap of paper no bigger than a thumb. It read, "Forgive me. Start again." I pressed it to my heart. The company, a new era by noon. I was standing in the glass lobby of Bennett Development Group. Employees whispered as I passed, some shocked, some relieved, some openly smiling. Sarah Chun met me at the elevator. "Miss Bennett," she said warmly, "we've been waiting for you." Her voice held something I hadn't heard in years. Genuine respect. We rode to the 32nd floor, my father's office. Now mine. The boardroom was filled with senior staff, all standing when I entered. Marcus Wade extended his hand. "You don't have to prove yourself to us," he said. "Your father already did that." I took a breath, then my father's seat. "This begins a new chapter," I said. not ruled by fear or manipulation, but by legacy and integrity. The room erupted into applause. And for the first time in 15 years, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. Nora Bennett had returned to her home, to her company, to her life. The sky above North Midlands glowed soft gold the morning I officially stepped into my father's role. Not as a pretender, not as someone tolerated out of obligation, but as the woman he always intended to lead Bennett Development. When I entered the executive lobby, the receptionist, who had known me since I was a child, stood up. "Welcome home." "Miss Bennett," she said, "Welcome back." "Not good to see you." "Welcome home." The words hit deeper than I expected. The first board meeting, the boardroom had always felt cold to me, a place of tension and competition. But today it felt like possibility. I pushed open the doors. Every board member stood. Not one person remained seated. Marcus. Wade gestured toward the chair at the head of the table. "Your seat." "Nora, my seat." For a moment, I saw echoes of Veronica sitting here, pretending authority through intimidation. Then I envisioned my father steady, strategic, always thinking 3 moves ahead. I took the chair. Marcus cleared his throat. "Before we begin, I think it's important that we acknowledge something. We all knew Veronica was exerting unusual influence. Some of us suspected worse. But your father, he trusted you. And after reviewing the trust documents, we trust you too." I didn't respond right away. I wanted the weight of the moment to settle. "I'm not here to replace my father," I finally said. "I'm here to continue what he began and rebuild what Veronica tried to fracture." Sarah nodded. "We're ready when you are." That was the moment I realized I wasn't inheriting chaos. I was inheriting loyalty. Quiet loyalty that had survived under Veronica's shadow. Waiting, implementing the first changes. My first act wasn't dramatic. It was symbolic. "We're reinstating the Bennett Foundation's full funding," I announced. "No more buried donations. No more redirection. Every cent goes where it's supposed to." Sarah's eyes softened. She knew what that decision meant. My mother's legacy would be honored again. The second change was structural. "We're auditing all departments. Transparent leadership starts today." No one objected. Some people even exhaled, like they'd been waiting years for honesty. Finally, I addressed the elephant in the room. "As of today, Veronica Voss is permanently barred from Bennett Development property and operations." A ripple of relief swept through the room. Marcus spoke again. "Your father built this company, but you're going to heal it." Returning to his office after the meeting, I walked into my father's corner office. The sunlight reflected off the skyline he'd helped construct. His chair sat where he left it, solid, worn, familiar. I didn't sit in it right away. Instead, I touched the backrest, imagining his hand there. Imagining the nights he sat here, documenting everything, planning my freedom. A soft knock broke the silence. Daniel stood in the doorway. "How does it feel?" he asked. I finally sat down, like I'm exactly where my father wanted me to be. Daniel smiled. "Then the long game worked." I looked at the skyline, the city my father built, and the future he secured for me. "No," I said softly, "it's only just beginning." At its heart, Nora Bennett's story is not simply about inheritance or wealth or corporate power. It is a story about truth, patience, and the quiet strength of those who refuse to let cruelty define them. It is about a daughter nearly erased and a father who used his last years to ensure she would never disappear again. When Nora stepped into her rightful place, every victory she gained came with a deeper understanding that love, even when silent or hidden behind fear, can still protect. That justice, when built slowly and deliberately, becomes impossible to escape. And that legacy is not measured in assets, but in the protection and freedom we leave for those we love. Her father's plan was not born from vengeance. It was born from regret and redemption. He knew he couldn't undo the years she lost, but he could ensure she would never suffer again. And that is the emotional core of this entire story. 1. Justice can be patient. Graham didn't strike back impulsively. He didn't scream or fight or expose Veronica while he was sick. Instead, he created a fortress of truth, brick by brick, designed to activate only at the perfect moment. He weaponized patience, a deeply underrated form of power. It reminds us that not every battle must be loud. Sometimes the quietest plans are the most devastating. 2. Power built on lies always falls. Veronica's entire world status, wealth, control was constructed from manipulation. She believed she would never be caught because she believed Graham was weak. But power built on intimidation collapses the moment real truth surfaces. She became the architect of her own downfall. 3. Love protects even in silence. Nora spent years thinking her father had abandoned her emotionally. The truth was the opposite. He had spent years protecting her, even when he couldn't tell her. Every document he saved, every recording he captured, every late-night meeting. It was all for her. Love doesn't always speak, but it always acts. 4. Reclaiming. What is yours is not revenge. It is healing. Walking into Willow Crest, sitting in her father's office, restoring her mother's foundation, taking control of the company. These were not acts of vengeance. They were Nora stepping into a life that had always been hers. Reclaiming stolen ground is an act of healing, not destruction. 5. You are stronger than the stories others force onto you for years. Veronica tried to shape Nora into a narrative of neglect and distance. But Nora's truth, her persistence, her heart, her loyalty outlived every lie. And in the final moment, the truth won. Final message to the listener. This story teaches one powerful lesson. No matter how long lies stand, truth doesn't die, it waits. And when it rises, it is unstoppable. If you've ever felt erased, underestimated, or pushed aside, remember Nora. You can reclaim what's yours. You can rebuild what was broken. You can rise higher than anyone expected, because justice is not just a courtroom moment. It is the quiet, unstoppable return to who you were always meant to be. Thank you for listening. Where are you listening from today? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.